Jack Doherty has got to be one of the scummiest people on the internet, at least top 5 on the list. This is a guy who goes around harassing people, making other lives miserable, while he lets his bodyguard take all of the heat for his own actions. He's also a mini Andrew Tate in the sense that he makes all of his money by promoting or managing OnlyFans stars. He's also a person who's been terminally online since he was a child, so it's safe to say that this guy does not actually know anything about principles or morals. And these aren't one-time issues where people hear about it and that's all he's known for the rest of his life. These are things that he's actually been called out for several times in the past couple of years. And as you all may have heard recently, if Jack Doherty isn't endangering lives by instigating fights, he's endangering lives by driving while distracted in wet conditions.
Hey. Say Chuck, bro. I'm not talking to you, bro. Oh! Oh! No! No! No!
Now, I'm going to stop playing the video right there because you guys know what happens next. I'm also trying to avoid any YouTube restrictions, but let me make something really clear real quick. If distracted driving wasn't enough, and if speeding in the rain wasn't enough, what some people have failed to point out is the fact that Jack Doherty in this occasion either downshifted on his car or accelerated the car. You can tell by the exhaust note changing as he's accelerating past that truck.
Oh!
It was at this moment that you can tell where his car actually started to lose traction, because once the exhaust note shifted, that's the moment those rear tires kicked out and slipped in the rain, which led to the accident that we have at hand. Now, I'm pointing this out for 2 major reasons. My first reason being is to point out how Jack Doherty is a reckless and irresponsible driver that does not deserve to have a license. My second reason is to sort of dispel some conspiracy theories, which I'll get into a little bit later. Recklessness is not enough to describe what Jack Doherty did here. In my opinion, I think he had a complete and utter disregard for the safety and well-being of those around him. I mean, first we see him distracted while driving, literally looking down at his phone, and as anyone with a license knows, looking down for even a second or two can double the risk of crash, because depending on the speed, you may have already traveled over 100 yards, right? Amateur information, but extremely critical. Second, we see him speeding while doing that, in wet conditions, and I want to give an estimate of possibly 70 to 80 miles per hour at that. Something that I want to add here too is that the McLaren 570S, which is the type of car that he's driving, actually uses a staggered setup, which means that the front tires are thinner than the rear tires in most situations. Now, for performance vehicles, typically in the rear end, the tires are going to be wider, typically having a width of 275 millimeters. And contrary to popular belief, wide tires are not actually that great for grip in wet conditions, as the chance of aquaplaning does increase. I know from experience personally, because I have 285 size tires on my own car. Now, I could give you an entire lecture about how tires should be thinner in the rain to reduce buoyancy, and I could teach you about how tread works in wider tires when it comes to water dissipation, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. So this guy has a car that is unoptimal for the rain. Most sports cars are going to be unoptimal for the rain, and this guy not only decides to be distracted while driving, speeding in wet conditions, but also he decided to throttle the car while other people were around him. Let's take another look at this clip again for just 1 second.
Oh!
What really pisses me off about this is that he decides to do this close to 2 vehicles, almost in between both of them. If he had been a second or 2 faster, or even half a second slower, he could have either hit the vehicle that's in front of that truck or the truck itself, potentially causing multiple lives in this crash. This crash was a very terrible crash too. It's not one that it's just like a minor impact. The entire front end of this car completely disintegrated when he actually ran into the wall. It appears that the person who suffered the most from this crash is just the cameraman, which is super unfortunate to him. I would show you the results of the accident, but unfortunately that's not allowed on YouTube. But it was pretty bad. The guy was pretty beaten and bloody. It was horrible. And the worst part about it is that when they were actually going through the aftermath of this event, trying to get out of the vehicle, Jack Doherty seemed to care more about the live stream than his actual cameraman, who was struggling inside the car.
I was like, can you film on here on the phone? And just just make it look good. Look through here the whole time. Go over my clip. You got driver's license with you?
Yeah, I got you.
You guys, all 4 of you were in the car?
No. 1, 2.
This is a different instance than the one that I was referring to because the other one is a little bit too graphic, but as you can tell by this clip alone, he is very nonchalant about this. He doesn't really care about the injuries, if any. He only cares about looking good for the camera. His priorities are all over the wrong places, but I mean, let's be real here. It's not like they've ever been in any correct place to begin with. Now, before we move on to Jack's terrible behavior after the fact, I want to address a conspiracy theory that's been floating around, and it's the idea that Jack Doherty deliberately crashed his car. Let me play a clip from Steve Lacey so you guys can get an idea of where I'm coming from.
It's like pouring, and then you speed up while on your phone to go around the truck. Okay. Now, my genuine opinion on this, and I know this is far-fetched, I know this might sound crazy to you guys, I think Jack did this on purpose. I know that sounds insane. I actually think he crashed this car on stream on purpose. If you really watch this, he starts screaming before he lost control. And it just sounds like a scripted scream. Listen. Oh! He's fine right now.
So I want to correct something really quick. He's not actually fine right now when he's screaming. That's the moment the car started losing traction. You can tell because of the fact that he started speeding up, as mentioned in this video. He pressed the throttle, the rear tires kicked loose. You can even see the car swaying loose right there.
And then all of a sudden, he turns the wheel.
Oh, no, no, no.
He's not even like trying, you know what I mean?
So he's actually turning the wheel to the left because he's trying to counter steer how you're supposed to when it comes to situations like these. The one mistake Jack didn't do is throttle it out, which unfortunately a lot of people typically don't remember to do that. So yes, he is trying to save it. He didn't intentionally flick the car for it to lose traction. The fact that he sped up led to him hydroplaning. Did Jack do this deliberately? Yes and no. Yes, because he sped up when he wasn't supposed to. He pressed the throttle when he wasn't supposed to. But I don't think he flicked the car to deliberately crash in between those two vehicles, potentially injuring other people in the process. While I do heavily dislike Jack Doherty, I wouldn't go as far as to say that he deliberately caused an accident of this magnitude. What we can shit on Jack Doherty for is him being a terrible driver, endangering other people, and also his behavior after the fact.
Everyone double tap the screen. We're almost at 1 million likes, guys. Let's see how fast we can hit it. Let's see how fast we can hit it. James Ellis, thank you for the galaxy, bro. I just followed you back. Guys, let's see how fast we can hit my galaxy goal. I'm going to follow everyone back once we hit it. Appreciate y'all. Cole with the galaxy. Thank you, Cole. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aiden, for following Live Creator. How'd you crash your car? I hydroplaned. I literally hydroplaned. I'm in a McLaren in the pouring rain. What do you expect? You guys have never drove a McLaren.
Not only does this moron attempt to pseudo-beg for donations by telling people he'd follow them back if they hit the galaxy goal, but he's also trying to deflect from the situation at hand, which is the fact that his irresponsible driving was the cause of his crash, not the fault of the car. As I mentioned earlier in the video, is it a little bit harder and irresponsible to drive these types of sports cars in the rain? Yes. Does that mean it's impossible to do? No, it's perfectly possible to drive these types of cars on the rain. It just depends on the amount of precautions, responsibility, and care that you put into your driving when doing so, because if you don't, you're going to wreck, especially when you're attempting to overtake somebody at 70 miles per hour while it's raining and pouring. I have personally worked with clients who have had very high performance vehicles in the past. I've had to deliver those vehicles to them in wet conditions, in places where storms are very common and abundant. Let's just be real here. It's not the fault of the car. It's typically the fault of the driver, unless the car is super neglected and has bald tires. Doherty here is just making excuses when he really has no excuses to be making. He should just own up and take responsibility for the fact that he was being irresponsible. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to even deserve a little bit of jail time for endangering the lives of other people around the road. Driving is not a right, it's definitely a privilege, and Jack Doherty has proven that he is not somebody who deserves to have a license. If he did that on live, imagine what he's doing privately behind the scenes in other vehicles, or what he's done in the past, how he could have potentially endangered other people. It definitely goes to show that these people are not deserving of anything particularly decent in their lives if they're willing to be so careless with it and potentially even risk the lives of other people with those things. All in all, I'm glad that Jack Doherty is okay. In my eyes, even though he's around the same age as me, he's still definitely just a young moron who still has a lot to learn. He should have learned by now, yes, but a life is more valuable than a car. But more importantly, he should definitely have his license revoked, and he should definitely be paying some sort of fine if they haven't fined him already for the damage that he caused by being reckless and careless. Anyways, that's all I got for today, everybody. Later.